You already know what I'm about to say. That's the thing that should scare you. You've heard this voice before. Not my voice. The voice inside you that whispers in the dark that you were built for something more than this, and you have been ignoring it, negotiating with it, promising it that one day when the timing is better, when you have more money, when people start to support you, when you finally feel ready, one day you will listen. But that day keeps moving. That day has been moving for 3 years now, maybe 5, maybe 10. And somewhere in the gap between who you know you are and who you're allowing yourself to be, you've started to collapse inward. I see it. You see it. Let's stop pretending. You're sitting in something you don't have a name for. It's not depression, not exactly. It's not failure, not technically. It's something quieter and more corrosive than either of those things. It's the feeling of living below your own ceiling, of waking up every morning with this low hum of awareness that you are capable of more and have been choosing, consciously or not, to perform the smaller version of yourself, because the full version of you scared people away. And the people it scared away were supposed to be your people. That's the part that doesn't get said enough. The betrayal wasn't from strangers. It was from the ones who sat at your table, who said they loved you, who nodded when you told them your dream, and then went silent in the exact moment silence is the loudest sound in the world. You told somebody what you wanted to build, and watched their face do that thing, that micro-expression, that almost imperceptible flicker, where they were already calculating the odds against you, already rehearsing the consolation speech they'd give you when it didn't work out. And maybe they didn't say it out loud. Maybe they were kind enough, or cowardly enough, to just not say anything at all. But you felt it. You felt it in your stomach before you finished the sentence. You felt the temperature of the room drop 2 degrees. You felt the weight of their doubt land on you like a hand on your shoulder. Gentle, well-meaning, and suffocating. And here is the part that nobody will admit. You let it in. You let their silence become your evidence. You started carrying their doubt the way you carry your phone, everywhere, all the time, checking it constantly for confirmation that yes, you were right to slow down, right to scale back, right to make peace with the smaller version of the dream. Their doubt became the story you told yourself at 2 in the morning when you should have been sleeping, and instead you were staring at the ceiling, making spreadsheets of everything that could go wrong. Their doubt became the reason you didn't send the email, didn't make the call, didn't show up to the audition, didn't start the business, didn't write the first page. You dressed their fear in your own voice and called it wisdom. That is the crime. Not what they did to you, what you did to yourself in the name of their opinion. I want you to sit in that for a second before we go anywhere else, because this speech is going to take you somewhere, but you cannot get there by sprinting past the burning building. You have to walk through the fire, and the fire starts here. The person who has been holding you back the longest is not your unsupportive parents, not your doubting friends, not your indifferent boss, not the algorithm, not the economy, not the timing. The person who has been holding you back is the version of you that decided their approval was required. The version of you that outsourced its own belief. The version of you that handed the pen to people who were not qualified to write a single sentence of your story, and then sat there watching them scribble all over it, and called it collaboration. I want you to think about the last Sunday evening you had. Not last Sunday maybe, but a Sunday evening. The kind where the weekend is closing and Monday is approaching, and there's this particular kind of dread that doesn't have anything to do with the tasks on your calendar. It's existential. It sits in your chest like a stone. You're scrolling through your phone, not because there's anything to find, but because the alternative is sitting with your own thoughts. And your own thoughts right now are not a place you want to be. You're watching people post their wins, their launches, their promotions, their engagements, their transformations. And somewhere beneath the performative happiness you extend toward their posts, there is a quiet, shameful, honest voice inside you saying, "That should be me." Not in a petty way, in the deepest, most truthful way. You know what you are capable of. You have always known, and the gap between that knowledge and your current reality is not something you can scroll your way out of. The smile you put on at the office, at the family dinner, at the party you didn't want to attend. I know what that smile costs you. I know what it takes to perform okayness when something inside you is going silent. I know what it feels like to laugh at someone's joke while a part of you is watching from a distance, detached, exhausted, wondering how much longer you can keep playing the part of the person who has it together. That particular loneliness, the loneliness of being surrounded by people who don't actually see you, is one of the most devastating experiences a human being can have. And it is completely invisible to everyone around you, which makes it worse. You can't even explain it without sounding dramatic. You can't grieve it without feeling guilty. So you carry it, silently, efficiently, like a professional at suffering. And maybe you've tried to explain it. Maybe there was a night, maybe there were several, where you tried to articulate this hunger, this vision, this thing you know you're supposed to be doing. And the person across from you tried. They really tried. But you could see in their eyes that they were reaching for your words the way you reach for something in a dark room, with good intentions and no idea where the light switch is. And when they finally said something like, "That sounds great, but is it really realistic?" Or, "Just make sure you have a backup plan," you heard them out, nodded, said you understood, and then quietly put that dream in a box, and put the box in a place you don't look at very often, because looking at it hurts. Let me tell you a story. His name was James. Not a famous James. Not yet. Not in this part of the story. Just a 26-year-old from a mid-sized city in Ohio, who had grown up watching his father work a job he hated for a company that didn't know his name, who had told himself since he was 12 years old that his life was going to look different. Not richer necessarily, not flashier, just his. Built by his hands, directed by his own compass, accountable to his own vision of what a life could be. He had an idea that wouldn't leave him alone. An idea for a company that would do something specific and new in a space that everyone around him said was too crowded, too hard to break into, too late to try. Everyone said, too risky, too idealistic, too much for someone with no connections, no capital, no safety net. His father sat across from him at the kitchen table one October evening. The kitchen table he'd grown up eating dinner at. The kitchen table where his parents had argued about money when they thought he was asleep. The kitchen table that smelled like the house he was trying so desperately to leave and love at the same time. And his father looked at him with eyes that were tired in the specific way that lives unlived make eyes tired, and said, "I just don't want to see you get hurt." And James heard something underneath those words that his father wasn't saying. He heard, "I don't think you can do it." He heard, "I tried something like this once too." He heard, "Please don't make me watch you fail." He heard love wrapped around fear, wrapped around doubt, and he didn't know how to hold all three at once, so he held them the only way he could. He nodded. He said, "I know, Dad." And he went upstairs and lay in the dark for a long time. He almost quit before he started. That's the version of the story that never gets told. The moment just before the moment. The silence before the decision. He lay in the dark for 3 hours and had a full, complete, entirely convincing conversation with the version of himself that was going to give up. That version had good arguments. That version had statistics and risk assessments, and a very reasonable 10-year plan that ended with a comfortable mediocrity that he would have been able to live with, probably, with enough time and enough distractions. That version of James was rational and careful and safe, and would never have to look his father in the eye and say, "I failed." But there was another version of James in that room. Not louder, quieter, actually. Exhausted, beat up, but somehow still standing. And that version said something that wasn't inspiring or poetic, or the kind of thing you put on a motivational poster. It said, "If you quit now, you will know for the rest of your life that you quit. And you will have to carry that. Not the failure of trying, the weight of never trying, the specific, inescapable, permanent weight of knowing, in the private architecture of your own mind, that you had something and you handed it back, that you were capable and you chose comfort instead, that the one person in the world who was supposed to bet on you, folded. James got up. Not dramatically. He didn't have some cinematic epiphany. He just got up, went to his desk, opened his laptop, and sent an email he'd been drafting for 3 weeks. That's it. That was the revolution. One email, sent at 1:17 in the morning, to a person he didn't know, about an idea that nobody believed in yet, not even fully himself. But he sent it anyway. And then he sent another one. And then another one. 2 years later, his company had its first real revenue. 4 years later, it had employees. Not because the world believed in him. Not because his father threw a parade. Not because his friends stopped being skeptical, or the people who doubted him sent apology emails, or the universe conspired to make it easy. None of that happened. What happened was simpler and harder, and more honest than any of that. James stopped requiring other people's belief as a prerequisite for his own. That is the sentence. I want you to feel it before I move past it. Read it again in your head, slowly. He stopped requiring other people's belief as a prerequisite for his own. There is no more liberating decision a human being can make, and there is no more terrifying one, because once you make it, you have no one to blame for your inaction. You cannot point at your parents, your partner, your city, your circumstances, your limited resources, your imperfect timing. Once you stop requiring their belief, you own the whole thing. The risk is yours. The work is yours. The failures are yours. The progress, slow, invisible, unsatisfying at first, is yours. All of it, yours. And most people will not make that trade. Most people would genuinely rather keep the comfortable story of, I could have, but nobody believed in me, than take ownership of their own potential and live with the full weight of personal accountability. Let me ask you something directly, and I want you to actually answer this, not perform an answer, not rehearse the version of yourself that has it figured out. I want the real answer. Who is the last person whose doubt changed your behavior? Whose skepticism made you smaller? Whose silence made you question yourself? I want you to see that person clearly. Hold them in your mind. And now I want you to ask yourself, what have they built? What risk have they taken? What did they sacrifice for a vision that only they believed in? What scar do they carry from going all the way out on a limb and having it crack underneath them? Because here is the truth that will sting if you let it. Most of the people whose doubt you have absorbed and carried like cargo have never taken a risk worth talking about. Most of the people who told you it was too hard have never tried the hard thing. Most of the people who said it was too risky have never been willing to be uncomfortable. And you have been letting the opinions of people who have never been where you're trying to go determine whether or not you go there. That is insane. I mean that literally, not metaphorically, not rhetorically. It is a form of madness to let the blind give you directions. It is a form of self-destruction to let the grounded tell the bird it can't fly. And it is the most common form of self-sabotage in the world, so common that it masquerades as humility, as realism, as wisdom, as groundedness. You call it managing expectations. You call it being practical. You call it listening to feedback. But what it actually is you using someone else's fear as a reason to not show up for your own life. And you are too smart for that, too talented for that, too built for that. Let's talk about what believing in yourself actually means, because I think we've been sold a counterfeit version of this idea that looks like confidence and sounds like affirmation, but has no load-bearing capacity when the real pressure comes. The motivational poster version of self-belief is a feeling. It's a warm glow of certainty that you hold until the criticism lands, until the rejection email arrives, until the numbers don't work, until you look in the mirror on a Tuesday morning and feel nothing like the hero of your own story. That version of self-belief is fragile by design, and it collapses the first time reality pushes back, which reality will always do, because reality doesn't care about your confidence, your vision board, your morning routine, your podcast listening habits, or your carefully curated sense of yourself as someone destined for more. Real self-belief is not a feeling. Real self-belief is a decision. A daily, unglamorous, often lonely decision to act in alignment with your potential, even when every piece of evidence in your environment is telling you to stop. Real self-belief is the 6 a.m. alarm when nobody is watching, and there is no accountability partner, and the bed is warm, and the work ahead is uncertain and difficult, and the outcome is not guaranteed. Real self-belief is the email sent when you're terrified, the call made when your voice shakes, the draft written when you think it's not good enough, the meeting attended when you feel like an imposter. Real self-belief is not the absence of doubt. It is the choice to act despite the presence of doubt, every single day, without requiring the doubt to disappear first. This is the shift. This is the specific, behavioral, life-altering shift that separates the people who build things from the people who watch others build things and say, "I thought of that." The builders are not more confident. They are not less afraid. They are not in possession of some secret emotional resource that you were denied. They have simply, at some point, made a different decision about the relationship between their fear and their action. They stopped making action conditional on the elimination of fear. They stopped waiting for certainty before moving. They stopped requiring belief from others and started manufacturing it themselves, through repetition, through small evidence accumulated over time, through the act of showing up when it would be easier not to, and noticing, incrementally, that they survived, that they grew, that the thing they were afraid of was survivable, that they are more capable than the fear suggested. The greats, and I mean every person who has ever built something extraordinary in any field, in any era, in any circumstance, shared one thing that you don't see on their highlight reel. They shared a period of sustained invisibility, a period where the work was real, and the commitment was real, and the effort was real. But the results were not yet visible, not yet validated, not yet applauded. A period where they were building the foundation of something that had not yet broken ground. Every musician who went on to sell out arenas had years of playing to empty rooms. Every entrepreneur who built a company worth talking about had years of rejection and silence and operating on fumes of faith. Every athlete who stood on the highest podium had years of training sessions in facilities no one visited, doing repetitions no one counted, getting better in ways that no scoreboard recorded. Every writer who produced a book that changed someone's life spent years writing pages that no one read. The invisibility is not the punishment. The invisibility is the training. And the people who survive the invisibility not just endure it, but actually use it, actually grow inside of it, actually sharpen themselves against the stone of being unseen and unknown and unbelieved in. Those people are the ones who, when the light finally does find them, are ready for what the light brings. Because here is something nobody talks about. Visibility without readiness is its own kind of catastrophe. The people who get the opportunity before they have built the capacity for it, before they have developed the discipline, the resilience, the character required to sustain what attention brings, those people get destroyed by the very thing they thought they wanted. You have seen it happen. You have watched someone get the shortcut and fall apart because they never built the foundation that makes the height sustainable. And part of you, if you're honest, feared that could be you. Feared that you might get the thing and find out you weren't built for it. That fear is not weakness. It is wisdom. Let it sharpen you instead of stop you. I want to talk about the specific grief that comes with being unsupported in your vision, because I think we rush past it too quickly in these conversations. We go straight to, use it as fuel, use the doubt as motivation, prove them wrong. And while all of that is true, while there is real energy available in that position, there is also a legitimate grief in not being believed. There is something genuinely painful about seeing clearly while the people around you are blind to what you see. There is something exhausting about carrying a vision that only lives inside you, that has nowhere to land, that you can't fully express because the audience isn't ready, or the context isn't right, or the people in the room will not understand. That is a real and specific kind of loneliness, and it deserves more than the instruction to convert it into motivation. It is okay to grieve the support you didn't get. It is okay to feel the absence of the parent who should have said, "I believe in you," and didn't. It is okay to mourn the friendship where the reciprocal faith never showed up. It is okay to sit with the real disappointment of being surrounded by people who cannot see what you see, even when you love them, even when you know their doubt comes from their own fear and not from malice. Feel that. Actually feel it. Don't perform it. Don't weaponize it. Don't let it calcify into bitterness, but feel it. Because the only way through grief is through it. And the only way to stop carrying the weight of unexpressed pain is to acknowledge it, not bypass it. And then, and only then, after the acknowledgement, after the feeling, after the honesty, you make the decision. You decide what the grief is going to mean. Because pain is not inherently directional. Pain is just pain until you give it a direction. Suffering is what happens when you let pain move backward, when you let it become resentment, regret, avoidance, contraction, smallness. Growth is what happens when you let pain move forward, when you let it become clarity, commitment, fuel, a deepening of purpose, a refusal to let the thing that hurt you be the final word in your story. You don't control the pain. You control the direction. And it looks like choosing, every single day, to be someone who operates from evidence they're creating rather than validation they're requesting. Every day you show up to the work without external validation is a day you are writing a new story about who you are. Not the story they told about you. Not the story your doubt has been narrating for the last 3 years. Your story. The one where you are the person who showed up when no one was watching. The one where you did the work when the result wasn't yet guaranteed. The one where you chose to believe in your own potential, not because the evidence was overwhelming, but because the alternative of living your entire life below your own ceiling, performing a smaller version of yourself for people who will forget you anyway, was simply unacceptable. I want you to hear me right now. I want you to put down whatever else is in your peripheral attention and hear this one thing, because it is the truest thing I'm going to say, and I want it to land in the center of you, not bounce off the surface. You were not built to need their approval. You were not assembled from the raw materials of the universe so that you could spend your life waiting for someone else to confirm your worth. You were not given this specific mind, this specific hunger, this specific vision, this specific and unrepeatable combination of experiences and pain and perception and possibility, so that you could offer it to the world only after the world agreed that it was worth offering. That is not what you are here for. And on some level, in some quiet and honest part of you, you have always known that. The dream didn't come from them. The fire didn't come from them. The knowing didn't come from them. None of the things that make you capable of extraordinary things came from the people whose belief you have been chasing. Those things came from you. From whatever it is that made you, from the accumulation of everything you've survived, from the specific alchemy of your life up to this moment. They are yours. They have always been yours. And the question, the only question that matters, the question you will eventually have to answer, regardless of whether you answer it now or answer it at 75, looking back at a life that played it safe. The question is, what are you going to do with what's yours? Not someday, not when they believe, not when the conditions are perfect and the support is visible and the risk is reduced and the path is clear. Now. What are you going to do with what's yours right now? I have watched people answer that question in the affirmative. I have watched people who had every reason to give up, who had been dismissed, disowned, written off, laughed at, ignored, underfunded, overlooked, and told explicitly and repeatedly that they were not enough. I have watched those people answer yes, and go on to build things that outlasted the people who doubted them. Not because they had more resources, not because they got lucky, because they made a decision about their own worth that was not contingent on external confirmation, and then they acted from that decision every day until the evidence caught up. And I have watched the other kind, the people who were brilliant, genuinely brilliant, who had something real, who could feel the potential in themselves the way you can feel it in yourself right now, who let the doubt of others become the loudest voice in the room, who waited, who modified, who compromised, not all at once, but incrementally, the way erosion works, so slowly that you don't see the cliff diminishing until you look back and realize the ground you're standing on is half of what it used to be, who arrived at 40, at 50, carrying the particular grief of unlived potential, which is a grief unlike any other because it has no memorial, no acknowledgement, no community of mourners, just a private, permanent knowing of what could have been and wasn't. I don't want that for you. I genuinely, completely, with everything in me, do not want that for you. Not because your success validates me, not because this speech needs a redemption arc, but because I know what it means to have something real in you and to let the world talk you out of it. And I know what it means to refuse that. And the refusal is harder and lonelier and more terrifying than any motivational speech will make it sound. And it is also the only thing that will let you look yourself in the eye without flinching, which is the only freedom worth having. This is the part of the video where I'm supposed to wrap it up, where I'm supposed to give you the clean landing, the neat bow, the summarizing statement that makes you feel complete and resolved. I'm not going to do that, because you don't need to feel complete. You need to feel on fire. You need to feel the specific discomfort of someone who has just been shown something they cannot unsee. You need to walk out of this video a little bit angry, not at the people who doubted you, but at the version of yourself that agreed with them. Because that anger pointed in the right direction, toward the work, toward the daily decision, toward the refusal to perform the smaller version of yourself for anyone's comfort. That anger is the cleanest fuel there is. So here is what I want you to do tonight. Not tomorrow. Tonight. I want you to write down, not type, write with your hand, on paper, one sentence about what you have been postponing because someone else didn't believe in it. One sentence. Then write down the one action you could take tomorrow morning. Specific, small, executable in under 30 minutes. That would be the first real step toward that thing. Not the whole plan. The first step. The email, the call, the application, the page, the conversation, the registration, the one thing. Write it down. And tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you consume anyone else's opinion or content or reality, do the thing. That's it. That's the entire instruction. Everything else I've said for the last 30 minutes has been in service of that one instruction. Stop waiting for them and do the thing. Comment below. And I mean this. I actually want to know. Tell me, who was the person or moment that almost made you give up on yourself? And what kept you going? Not what keeps you going now, not the after. What kept you going in the middle, when it was dark and the evidence wasn't there yet? That comment might be the most important thing someone else reads tonight. Your story, your real story, not the highlight reel version. It might be the exact thing someone needs to read to keep going. So leave it. Be honest. Be specific. Give someone the gift of not feeling alone. If this speech meant something to you, if something in this hour shifted something in you, subscribe to this channel. Not because the numbers matter, not as a transaction, but because there's more where this came from. Because this conversation continues. Because there are more truths to tell, and more comfort zones to destroy, and more lies that need confronting, and you should be here for all of it. And when this video ends, and the silence comes, and the feeling of this moment starts to fade the way feelings always do, remember this. You don't need the feeling, you need the decision. And you can make the decision right now, in this moment, while something is still alive in you that has been dormant for too long. Nobody believed in you. You survived that. Now build something that makes the doubt irrelevant. Go.